Hello and welcome to the Binge Thinker, episode 1. My name is Jameel Rehman. I am your host. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Oh man, it's exciting to get this started. Exciting and scary. I've been thinking about creating a podcast for quite some time now. I've had the name The Binge Thinker around since 2014, I think. Yeah, I actually did a small student radio show in uni about 7 or 8 years ago now. Did terribly. Didn't really understand what a podcast was. Blundered my way through. Realized how fucking hard it is to compose a radio show by yourself for 2 hours. Oh, absolute nightmare. But hey, you live and you learn. So probably the best place to get started is, what is the Binge Thinker? Why is it called the Binge Thinker? And I've had that in my brain for quite some time because I am that. I feel like I'm a bit of a binge thinker. I'm a bit of an overthinker. I have a lot of thoughts, more than the average person that I would think. I've done a lot of things in my time, a lot of different avenues. I've been a professional musician, a comedian. I've been in technology consulting. I've now producing comedy. I've started 2 businesses. So I have a lot of thoughts in a lot of places. And yeah, that just seems to be an extension of who I am. So I thought, why not? Why not make this a part of me through this single integral channel of all my thoughts, good or bad, and try and express myself authentically through a platform or a medium, which is something I've never done before, by the way. This is actually a bit of a leap of faith for me. Have a bit of a strange opposition to actually be on recorded media, which is very strange considering that I'm a comedian. But yeah, I've realized recently being in front of a camera, being on a microphone that is very direct, I've had a lot of issues with it, and we'll talk about why in the many episodes to come, hopefully. So what can you expect from the Binge Thinker? Well, I want this to be an extension of myself, an extension of all of my thoughts, ideas, concepts, things that I want to explore, discuss with other people, share with you what I think is important, share what I've found to be of use. I'm really someone that likes to share tools and ideas, and hopefully you get something out of it. Hopefully I can educate you, entertain you, help you heal. Help you heal. That's an interesting concept. Because, yeah, this first episode that I wanted to start with is about me and the story of how I have transformed my life basically over lockdowns, so almost a year and a half, 2 years now. And it's something that I've been really hesitant to talk about because I've had a fear of self-indulgence where I get concerned that I talk about myself too much because I talk a lot and I'm very observant and I can go into a lot of detail if I want to, but people generally don't have the time or energy for that. So I figure, well, that's what the beauty of long-form podcasts are, is that you can have a medium to share thoughts as they come. No need to edit or trim if you don't want to. Things can be fully formed, things can be bullshit. It's all about having the honest, true conversation without worrying about the edit or how much time you've got to make your point. And that suits me a lot. Now, I'll have to get more comfortable talking in this process and feeling okay to share. But hey, that's part of the process itself. So, yeah, what else can you expect? You can expect a lot of rambling. You can expect a lot of ideas that will go into tangents. I'll probably forget ideas a lot. That's what happens, is that I've just got this very fast, multifaceted, multi-dimensional mind. I think of a lot of things at once. And yeah, let's just see if you can keep up, because I sure as fuck can't sometimes. But that's part of the fun. If you enjoy seeing a mental car crash from time to time, you've come to the right place. But also, hopefully, I can talk openly about my experiences with you. You get something of value that helps you, you pass it on. And this starts this positive chain of giving and sharing and, just spreading some positivity around. That's the idea of this podcast, is to have real, open conversations, but be optimistic about the future. I think that's a good way to put it. So, yeah, this first episode, well, first maybe I'll go, there will be other episodes where I talk with people and have conversations with others. There might be solo pods. It's a real mishmash at the moment. It's a bit of a mix. Not too sure. I'm letting it naturally come to fruition. I'm going to let it unfurl in its own way. I don't like to stymie the creative process by setting regulations around it too early in the piece, because you never know what something could be if you don't give it the opportunity to try it. And I'm pretty experimental as well. So right now I've got different microphones set up, different video formats set up. You're going to see a lot of tinkering. I'm a big tinkerer as well. Love experimenting with equipment, love tech. That's why I'm into tech, because I love to just toy with things, see what happens, make something different, So yeah, this first podcast, I wanted to talk about this story of transformation. If you don't know me, over the last couple of years, probably since November 2019, I've knuckled down and done a lot of work on myself. A lot of work, physically, mentally, spiritually, as a result of a lot of pain and a lot of disappointment and a lot of suffering through a feeling of unworthiness. And that sounds kind of dark and sad, but the reason I want to talk about it is because there has been an immense transformation in the way that I think and feel and perceive the world. And that's been immensely valuable to someone like myself, who has come from a background of negativity, of cynicism, of low self-esteem, of bullying, of anxiety. I've had my challenges with mental health basically my entire life, and I think that's an important thing to discuss and normalize. I think it's really important to set examples that we're all just reminding each other that we're all going through the same thing, but that's the trick of the ego and pain and fear, is that it separates us. But by challenging that, by speaking about our individual experiences, we come to realize that we're not necessarily alone. And we come to realize that we share a lot of pain, and that creates empathy, which creates deeper connections, and that creates more positive bonds. It helps us understand each other instead of setting each other apart. And I think we really need that right now. I think we really need that. I think we've always needed it. But with the way the world's going, you can either just submit to the bullshit of the divisiveness that the modern world is putting with us, through anti-vax and racism and all those isms that try and set us apart. But I think there is a certain amount of power, healing power, that can be found in sharing, good or bad. You want to share the wins. We're happy to talk about the wins. People on social media are always happy to, share their best moments. But it's the moments you don't share. It's the dark times that really form the character of who you are and really form the bonds between people. Why do soldiers have loyalty to each other after a war no matter what? Because they've been through the war together. And I think if we can exemplify that in small ways, in our everyday lives, so that the horrors of war, we can become stronger. We can become stronger as a collective and not distance each other, because we really are all the same. We are one. Now, with that messiah message aside, this is a hard one to start, I'll tell you. It's an interesting way. I mean, I'll be honest. Yeah, it's hard to start because it's hard to share, but we're here. And I think the only way in is through. So yeah, maybe to start, you learn about me a bit more. So I'm 31, born and raised in Melbourne, half Filipino, half Pakistani, born to migrant parents. They met here in Australia, had me, and I was an only child until I was about 12. And during that time, yeah, it was at a pretty tough upbringing. Very isolated, spent a lot of time alone. My parents were, working hard, so there's a bit of emotional negligence there. And when I grew up, I got bullied a lot because around 7 or 8 years old, I got fat, became a little chubby kid. So I used to get bullied a fair bit, get bullied by people I thought were my friends, because that's what kids do. Around 9, 10, 11 when I moved house. And yeah, I was a sensitive child. I was a sensitive child, but I was hidden under a spoiled brat because my parents tried to compensate for the lack of time with treats, video games. And as a kid, I don't know any better. I'm just happy to take whatever they're willing to give me. But I was a funny kid. I was a pretty funny kid. Always have been. Always entertaining my friends and family. Lots of videos around that sort of thing. All the birthday parties, etc. Entertaining my aunties and uncles because I really had no one else to spend time with and socialize with. So I felt like I grew up pretty fast as well. I spent a lot of time around adults growing up, which I think is what really accelerated my my talking, my ability to talk, because fuck, I can talk. You're about to find that out. So ability to converse and socialize, I was pretty good at that growing up. I was also a gifted child, a pretty smart child. When I was in prep, I was reading at a grade 3 level, and that sort of continued into early primary school. My dad wanted me to get pushed up a year because I wasn't being challenged at school. I would literally just power through times tables and addition, multiplication, all those sorts of things, and just sit there bored, waiting for other people to catch up in class. And yeah, I didn't find it challenging. So my dad asked the school psychologist, should they bump him up a year? He said, no, leave him there because it's good for his socialization. But yeah, I had this dichotomy of being a very gifted child, but then also kind of socially alone a lot. So I was in my own world a fair bit. Growing up, always known for being funny. I think it was around 10 or 11 years old that I realized that I could use it as a self-defense mechanism to prevent the bullying by getting ahead of them and making fun of myself and, being self-depreciating. And that certainly helped when you're growing up, but it doesn't really do much for your self-esteem. That the only way that you feel like you can be accepted by others is at the cost of your own self-worth. And then eventually I went from being the bullied to becoming the bully. And I was a real fucking prick in early high school. My goodness. Because not only was I funny, I was sharp, and then I was mean. So I'd be able to get some real good barbs at people for no good reason at all. Just because I was a hurt kid myself. And hurt people hurt people. So, I remember in year 9, they did this survey in my class because the bullying was getting so bad that they said, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to write a list of everyone in the class that has bullied you this year. And out of a class of 26 people, I got mentioned 14 times and was top of that list. And then they pulled me into the school counselor's office and gave me the information. And they were like, well, what do you feel about this? And I go, not great. I feel terrible. And that really taught me a bit of a lesson in hurting other people because I didn't want to hurt other people. That's just what I knew. Because that's how I knew to get one up on others because I've spent a lifetime to that point having very low self-esteem, not very, very close friends, and instead of just feeling sad all the time, it's a way to push out. And that's what most bullying is, really. It's a way to regain control when you feel like the odds are stacked against you, is to lash out and be that aggressor. It's sad, but it's the reality. So, getting into later high school, my grades dropped off. I just wasn't really interested in high school. I wasn't really interested in the classes I was doing. I was great at music. I played bass when I was 12. And then carried that all through high school, and I was a great bass player. But, yeah, the laurels that I could reach and sit on of being smart just disappeared because I just wasn't interested in the things that I was learning. I didn't care about advanced maths or fucking calculus or any of those sorts of things. And then at year 11, year 12, when I was 18, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. I couldn't get out of bed. I just felt like I had no direction. I felt like what I was doing was useless. I felt like I was useless, an outsider. Because, yeah, nothing was going right. I was overweight, obese at that point. I was almost never exercised. Felt socially awkward. Didn't get any attention from girls in school. And I didn't even know how to connect with that many other people because it was just wounding. But yeah, I felt fucking low. Really low. And I recognized that within myself as well. I recognized that you've got to be better than this, man. You've got to pick yourself up. This is not the way to live. And I knew I had to change. Because I'm not going to just sit on antidepressants for the rest of my life and do fucking nothing. I knew that I was capable of things. But I didn't have discipline or effort instilled into me. I got handed things from a young age. I didn't really have the behavior of effort, reward for effort put into me from a physical perspective. So when I was 18, on my 18th birthday, didn't have an 18th. The most interesting thing I did on my 18th birthday was get a Medicare card. That's it. No fanfare, nothing. Just wanted my Medicare card. So I don't even know why, to be honest. Let's get that bulk bill going. But when I turned 18, I took a photo, which some of you may have seen on my Instagram, of me bottoming out, of going, this is the lowest you're going to be. And you're going to grow from here. And that's what I set myself on to do. I started going to the gym. I went to this hardcore bodybuilding gym that was near my house because I just thought it seemed interesting. And the gym owner took me under his wing a bit, and I actually started working there casually as a gym instructor, or just a dude that cleans up the gym, while he taught me the basics of fitness and bodybuilding. And I lost a fair bit of weight. I got fairly lean. I was into decent shape. I felt like I was going places a little bit. So physically, I was going places. Mentally, I still had a lot of shit in the brain. Still had cripplingly low self-esteem. Still awkward. Still anxious. Still had a lot of shame. And my home environment wasn't very healthy at all. It wasn't an environment that showed a lot of love. You know, my parents basically stayed together for the kids. And, you could feel it constantly. So, just not a healthy environment to live in. But at least I was making progress within myself, and that was great. So at 20, 21, I finally got my first girlfriend, and, she was amazing. But it was tumultuous because I didn't really know how to handle myself in this situation because I was extremely trauma bonded. Just really jealous, very insecure. The heart is willing to lean in, but then is so afraid of being hurt. Didn't know how to act around women. Didn't know how to be cool about it. And, it was tumultuous, but it was great when it was great. It was amazing to fall in love with someone and all the amazing experiences that come with it. But I got lazy after I got into a relationship. Got fat again. Didn't do much about it. Got really defensive about it because I, again, was so insecure. And I sort of fell back into bad habits. I was full of shit. I think that's one of the main things is not having integrity. That's what I look back on in the last 10 years. Or at least the first 5 out of high school. I mean, not that anyone really cares about integrity when you're 23 or whatever it is, but because of my rough home life, I was distanced from my family. And, I was lying to everyone about who I was. Because my parents would complain, oh, you don't spend time with the family. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll come spend time. Oh, you don't spend time with your brother. Yeah, I'll spend time with him. My partner would tell me, hey, you're getting fat. You're letting yourself go here. And I'd just be like, yeah, sure. I'll fix it. I'll go on a diet. I'll, work out more. But I was lying. I was lying to everyone. I was lying to myself constantly because it wasn't just about them, lying to them and thinking that everything was fine. I knew things weren't fine within myself. And I was lying to myself constantly that, I will go on that diet and I will exercise and get back into shape. Or, I will just stick to any of the commitments that I've made to myself. Whether it be fitness, spending time with people. Just was constantly lying. And that shit builds up over time. Your lack of integrity builds up because you suffer from those consequences of being dishonest. there is karma associated with that. Do you know what karma means? Karma means action. That's it. So the karmic circle is just nothing but action. You do good deeds, you'll get good returns. You do bad deeds, you'll get bad returns. So with karma, it was coming back to me in a bad way. I was losing connections with my family. I wasn't as connected to my partner. I was telling myself that I'd be, telling myself time and time again, yeah, you're looking fine. Or I would just be in denial of how I looked and felt. And the way that negativity permeates itself is desperation and sadness. And, you get conflicted with feeling shit about yourself. And then you try and do drastic things to get away from that, to get away from that pain, to get away from that suffering. And instead of facing the cold, hard facts of where you're at and who you are, you take shortcuts. One of the shortcuts that I took was trying to transform my body by using testosterone and using steroids. And I'll tell you, it didn't work. It's not as easy. You can't just juice up and everything's fine. That shit fucked with me, man. Yeah, you get some gains and you get a bit stronger, but I didn't know about dieting. I didn't know how to adhere to a diet. I spent my entire life being overweight and making poor dietary choices because there was no dietary education given to me in my family. I used to have lunch orders every single day. Imagine making a kid eat a meat pie or a small lasagna or chicken nuggets every single day. No wonder I was fat. Combine that with the fact that I had no one to go outdoors and play with. No shit, I was an obese kid. So, yeah, I had abused testosterone twice. Once when I was 21, 22. Another time when I was 26. And that second time, ruined me. I'm scared of needles. So I was freaking out trying to put this fucking needle into my arm twice a week. Freaking out that I'm going to not inject properly and put an air bubble into my heart and kill me or hit a nerve because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But I just wanted to feel strong and capable in my body. And instead of doing it the good old-fashioned way with diet and exercise and effort, I just thought, hey, I can take steroids, do a bunch of push-ups and go to the gym and everything will be fine. Nope. Didn't work. Just got a bit thicker, bloated up for a few weeks, and then all the gains just disappeared because, I wasn't exercising or dieting properly. It's all about that, as I've come to learn in my later years. So I've cheated. I've cheated a lot, and it's gotten me nowhere. And that's a hard thing to face because when the thing that you think is supposed to be the easy way out isn't easy, you go, well, what fucking hope is there for me now? Another way I was masking all this pain that I'd felt, this lack of integrity, low self-esteem, anxiety, not revealing my honest self, was that I was secretly smoking weed away from my partner. And I was doing that for a couple of years, if not more. I didn't feel like I could be honest with them about wanting to do it as often as they liked, And I was always so concerned about how they felt that I didn't feel like I could be myself around them. Because I was so trauma bonded, so desperate to feel their love and approval that I sacrificed what I really felt and my happiness and a lot of things just to keep them happy, so to speak. And they didn't ask for it, but that's just what I did because that's what I thought being in love was sacrifice and, suffering, because I didn't have any great example of what a healthy relationship looked like growing up. So, I've come to learn in my later years that I was using weed as a means to mask the feminine wounds that I have inside. And I'll talk about the masculine and feminine in a different podcast. There's definitely a lot of interesting perspectives there. But, so, let's cut to like 25 to 30-ish. I've got a career in tech. It's doing well. I'm in this relationship. I'm in the relationship for too long. It wasn't healthy. I wasn't really feeling satisfied, but I just felt, my self-esteem was so low that I just felt like no one else would love me and no one was capable of loving me. So I stayed because that's all I knew and all I'd known at that time was just, this is the way things are. And you're just going to have to keep suffering through this. And that's like the egoic part of me thought that. But my gut, I was suffering in my gut, knowing that there has got to be a different and better way through this. And that's what I felt. With every conflict, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? And sure, you want to refract that on the other person, but it's really up to you. That's one of the things I've learned throughout this process, that everything you want is up to you. But we'll get back to that. But anyway, we were growing apart and we weren't right for each other. But again, I was just so afraid of the consequences, the perceived consequences of being alone and unloved, that I just stayed. But that feeling just grew as we progressed through the relationship. So let's cut to early 2019. I'm in this unhealthy relationship. I'm still very distant from my family and my brother, who are frustrated that they've just been left alone. I am drowning in work because my boss at the time is an absolute prick and has just thrown me under the bus hard. And in early 2019, my dad gives me a call. And all our conversations up to that point were fairly strained and just not present. You could just tell there was distance in the conversations. We weren't being honest with each other. I had kept my family at a distance because I was ashamed and I was, hurt a lot by my childhood. But I didn't really recognize it at that point. I just knew that it wasn't good. But basically, my dad had opened up to me and told me he was disappointed in me. Disappointed in me because he had his own challenges with mental health. And he was there to support me the best he could, and he did. And I didn't do the same for him. I wasn't there for him. He had told me about how he'd had his own depression and pretty major depression. He felt isolated. And I didn't do a lot, if anything, to be there. And it's not all my responsibility, but I was only one of the few people that my dad actually opened up to as his son. And I wasn't there for him. And that killed me. that absolutely fucking killed me. To know that I'd finally gotten him to a point where he loves me and still does endlessly, like a good father should. My dad's a great father. And I just wasn't a good son. So just pile that on top of everything that I've talked about just before. Just unhealthy relationship, work's falling apart, I'm full of shit, just keeping people at a distance, suffering in my own mind, secretly smoking, just this barrage of negativity. And don't think I'm not sitting here not beating myself up. My self-talk is highly critical. Extremely critical. I'm my heaviest critic. Because I've spent, at that point, an entire lifetime thinking that I'm not good enough for anything. Not thinking that I'm worthy of having a partner that loves me or having a healthy family life or being in the early stages of a career, climbing up the corporate ladder. I was beating myself up more than anyone could. And that's really the point, I think, is that the amount of self-criticism that goes through our minds on a daily basis. The self-criticism about, I was criticizing my body every day to myself. Even though I was criticizing my body to myself in my own mind, I wouldn't let others people know about it. I'd be in denial about it externally, but internally, I was looking in the mirror and going, yeah, I'll do something about it. Didn't. And fuck, that happened so many times. So I'm piling up. Then work goes through a restructure. And so that's a pain in the ass because I didn't get the promotion that I was busting my ass for through this process. That's why I was dragging myself through the coals with this fuckhead of a manager because the role that I had wanted for years, he basically promised it to me. And then he left the business and I didn't get it. And I just felt backstabbed on top of everything else. And then in the lead up, my partner wanted to go on a trip, wanted to go backpacking for a year, starting February 2020. Because they were into photography, very outdoorsy. They wanted to explore the world and take photos and things like that. And, great for them, but that's just not who I am. I'm more indoorsy. I enjoy nature, but definitely not as much as they did. And we just did not travel well. The last trip that I had with them was in 2016. And to be honest, the steroid abuse I did back then got in the way of us having a good time because it gave me horrific acne. And yeah, it made me depressed and anxious. And it fucked me up, man. It fucked me up. The idea of spending a year just with them when we've already still got all these unresolved relationship issues and we haven't had a good time traveling together. I'm feeling extremely guilty about disappointing my family. I'm putting my burgeoning comedy life on hold, which was starting to gain traction and value to me. So that was just building more anxiety up. It was building it up pretty badly. And at that point in time, I wasn't someone that was opening up about my emotions to anyone. But I was getting to such a critical point in my life that I was breaking. I was getting to that point where I was at 18, where I was struggling to get out of bed, just feeling directionless. Every time we used to plan that trip, my anxiety would just shoot up because I was like, I know this is not a good idea. And I was breaking down. For the first time in my life, I was calling things like Beyond Blue and, Lifeline. And then I confided for the first time in someone else, into a good friend of mine, Cameron, because he had been open about his mental health challenges and his journey. I thought, hey, if he can be open about it and he's offering this, appeal to, hey, if you need someone to talk to, just reach out. I did. I took a chance and I was like, I just needed to speak to him. So I just sat in my car and spoke to him for an hour just about all these things that I was feeling. And it was great. Well, it put me on a path of understanding the value and just letting your emotions out and healing through that process. And I did something similar with another close friend, Peter, and just told him all of the things that I was feeling and how I wasn't feeling right in the relationship. And basically I'd come to the conclusion that I needed to break up with them. And that was something that I had thought about for a while, admittedly, before then, but I was just too cowardly. I was too afraid of whatever I was, alone, by myself, not loved, not sure. But I was suffering so much that the pain and the risk of whatever the outside world could be was less than the perceived pain of where I was now. And that's often one of the greatest barriers to change, is the fear of change and the fear of the unknown. But I was hurting so much at this point in time that, I felt like I had to do this because my gut was telling me. That's another thing, is that your gut, your intuition, you've got to listen to that shit. You've got to. Whatever it is in life, listen to your gut. Take a second to really hone into your intuition, because it will guide you to better places. And my gut was wrenching for years, but I just kept denying it because I was scared, because I was afraid. But it would just sit there boiling away, and I'd have to fight it and repress it, just suck it up, all in the name of fear. But I did it. Broke up with my partner. It was brutal. I mean, it was basically a divorce at that point. I'd been with them 9 years. It was always going to be messy and painful, but I tried to make it as minimal as possible, or as clean a cut as possible. I moved back home and had to figure it out, start again. For me, it was the opportunity to change again. It was a very similar feeling to when I was 18 and going, you're suffering here. This isn't where you're supposed to be going. You've got to change some shit up. Because one of the things that runs through my head a lot is how many more times? How many more times are you going to lie to yourself about being better? How many times are you going to lie to yourself about, one day I'll get fit. One day I will get those abs. One day I will feel confident in my own body. One day I will make it up to my family. One day I will be a better son. One day I will be a better brother. One day I'll be better to the people that care about me instead of being full of shit. And I was full of shit. To myself, to the people that I loved and cared about. And it's no good. I could not take it. So that's why I left. Because I knew that I couldn't be that person that I wanted to be in that environment. I needed to create space for myself and just get away and figure it all out and figure myself out. That's why I left. That's why I felt like I had to start again. So one of the good things that happened in that period was that I got to do a gig at Strawberry Fields, which was a festival, Bush Doof. And it was a great time. It was good to hang out with the guys and do comedy and, begin to do something and really pursue something that I love and that has been an innate part of me my entire life. And so we take it easy on the first couple of days until we do the gig. And then I think like the third day in, we go off. We kick it off a bit. I drop some acid. All the guys do whatever they do. And we're having this great time in the doof. But as this acid is kicking in, it's pulling me away. It's calling me. And it's just bringing something up. And I've got to get out, leave the doof area, and I just start wandering. So the doof was next to a river, by a riverbed. And I go to the river, and I just start having these epiphanies, these realizations that, okay, you've made this decision. You've got nothing else in your way now. You've blamed your partner for years for getting in the way of what you want to do. It's all on you now. It's all on you. Everything you want in life is up to you to achieve. No distractions. No bullshit. It's on you. And that was just buzzing through my mind for the majority of that afternoon. Yeah, I just sat there for ages, just this sacred knowledge, this wisdom from the ancients or whatever the hell it comes from, just filtering through my brain. And I'm just sitting in this river like a crocodile. Like I've got the water up to my nose line. I've got my sunglasses on. So all you see is this fucking idiot in fucking doof glasses just popping his head out of a river, watching people get gurning and, having a good time, just stumbling around all fucked up. And I'm just sitting there, just having this epiphany. Yeah, this just divine moment. So after some time, I find one of the boys, Hugh, and I just remember talking to him just about just all this blather about, unlearning things, about unlearning who I am. Yeah, just going through this epiphany, just winding through it over and over again. But I can remember I had a really nice afterglow. Sometimes you get on mushrooms or an LSD, you get an afterglow. I just felt this really nice feeling of peace and appreciation for where I was and for having this pass through me. And that was it. That was the first moment of like, time to get your shit together properly. So I move into my own apartment in Footscray. I get my life together, buy furniture, make a space for myself, and it's good. And I'm trying to do all the things, I'm trying to set these ambitious goals. I'm trying to, get my diet and my exercise right just the way I wanted to. And I'm just stumbling. I'm stumbling around. I still don't have that confidence in myself to really stick to something because I've never had real discipline in my life and really not really stuck to a plan very well. And I sort of came to this realization in about February 2020 where I was, probably been done about 2 months of trying to get things together, but I didn't really feel like I was making enough progress. And then this inner critic, again, is just like critiquing me over and over again. Oh, you're not doing this not enough. You're not doing that right enough. And I came to the realization then that I need help. I can't keep doing these things on my own because I can't trust myself because I don't have any self-accountability. I don't have any self-discipline. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Yeah, I worked at a gym and I know how to put an exercise regime together, but I don't know anything about dieting properly. I'd read all this information, but it just never stuck. It never stuck. Food is one of my biggest vices. I'm a comfort eater. Again, very unhealthy diet growing up, a lot of junk food, not a lot of healthy food. So I just had no basis of experience for what a healthy diet looked like. I mean, we ate well when I was in the relationship, but it wasn't consistent. Well, it was, we were semi-vegan or flexitarian at the time. Just wasn't consistent. And I would just sneak away food anyway. It was just, Anyway. So I come to the realization that I needed help and that I need to get someone to give me guidance, and I just need to listen to somebody else. I need to outsource diet and exercise to an expert, and I just trust and follow them because I'm no good at it. It's an important thing to recognize what you're not good at and outsource it if you can, because it just creates unnecessary suffering. So I start looking around, and I've known about my coach, Nikita, for about 10 years at this point. He was on 4chan when I was browsing it in 2008, 2009, when I was trying to figure out, try to get fitness information, and 4chan was huge back then. I know it was a bit of I was on 4chan a fair bit back in the day. And it was never a troll or anything like that. I just wanted to see the information and the porn. So I'd seen Nikita, followed on Instagram, and just seen all these, crazy results. He seems like a guy that's really put well together. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a punt on this. I signed up for Nikita's coaching. And let me tell you about Nikita, by the way. He is, with the utmost respect and reverence, an absolute sick cunt. He is a dude that has got his shit together. He's a genius. He's got a PhD in biochemistry and engineering. He's a chess grandmaster, classically trained pianist, just top of his grades in everything. Just a guy that has leveled up in every sphere of life. And that was what allured me to him, is that I have this thing where I find it difficult to find people that I think are smarter than me. I know that sounds a bit arrogant, but that's the reality, is that I know that I'm quite smart, and it's very hard for me sometimes to not feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. And with Nikita, I'm just like, fuck, this guy has got it in spades. So I'm happy to listen to him. He's got plenty of pictures and plenty of examples to show that he's the real fucking deal. So I was like, you know what? I've got to give this a shot. I can't do it myself. I need help. And that's what I did. I signed up for his coaching, started the 1st of March 2020, and we got to working. And even that was tumultuous at the start because, again, your mind just plays constant tricks on you. I was fretting about every weigh-in. Was I losing enough weight at the right time? Was I eating the right foods? I'd freak out if I, overindulge a little bit on the weekend. I just was constantly criticizing myself over and over again about every meticulous detail. Just this wounded fat child that just sat in there all the time. Just nitpicking. Constantly nitpicking. And that kid does not go away. Even now, I'm almost at 2 years, 1.5 years since I started, I still critique myself pretty heavily. It's brutal. I'm in fucking amazing shape, and I'll still nitpick at that little bit of back fat or a little bit of moob. It's a pain in the ass. That's another conversation topic about the mind versus the body and what I've learned in there. But, as we know, March 2020, the lockdowns start to hit and COVID starts to really kick off. So people freaking out and, things are starting to shut down. And I'm going, oh, fuck, this is getting bad. This is getting interesting. And I'm not afraid because I've never been someone that panics in a pressure situation. I've always been someone that thrives in it. But I did anticipate that shit was going to go south pretty quick. So I bought resistance bands online. They got there before everything shut down, before everyone ran out of stock, which was fantastic. I hustled some weight plates off one of my old trainers when I used to work at a gym I used to go to. My dad had an old rusty dumbbell set from 1993 that he bought from Kmart back then. And I cobbled that together just as the lockdowns hit so I could exercise at home. Because, for me, and I've said this time and again, and I will continue to say this, I saw opportunity in lockdown. I saw the opportunity that all of your external distractions are gone. There is an opportunity in this to really focus on yourself. And that's what, that was something I was actually secretly craving. For years, I would, even when I started doing my initial work on myself when I was about 18, I would have loved the idea of cocooning away and just like a hyperbaric time chamber, just being able to hide away from the world for a bit of time, work on myself, and then come back in. Just coming, shiny and perfect and all that. But that's all a bit of bullshit. That's just me not willing to be vulnerable in front of people during my transformative process. But it was ironically working out, or very coincidentally working out in my favor with these lockdowns. And so that's what I did. I had to suck it up. I had to suck up whatever insecurity I felt about myself throughout this process, even though I had a fucking amazing coach. He told me, and I was dieting right, hitting my macros. I was training with weights 3 days a week. I was doing cardio 3 days a week. I used to hate cardio. Could not run. When I was 9, I would struggle to run one lap of an oval. I was a little fatty, little boomba with zero fitness. And yeah, I willed myself into doing cardio because that was what was necessary to succeed. Now, I actually really like cardio. It's fucking just the irony. But I took the opportunity and I tried to make the most of everything. So when we had an hour of outdoor exercise, that's when I would do my hour of cardio every day. When we could barely go out at all, when it started to get really rainy, I bought one of those mounts for your bike. So like a bike trainer, like if people that are really into cycling, they'll use them to just pedal and bike indoors. So I bought one of those to make sure that I was getting my 3 hours in a week. I would sit in my studio apartment, bike in the middle of it. I'd have to move my couch and I would just put something on. I'd put a podcast on or something on TV and I would just pedal and get it done. And then with the diet, it was basically it was just high protein keto the entire time. I've never eaten so much meat in my fucking life, and I still do to this day. Holy shit. I eat about 1 kilo of meat per day. It's insane. But yeah, high protein, ketogenic dieting, so fuck all carbs. And look, I'm a big fan of keto. I really enjoy it. It suits my body type because I'm a bulky, slow metabolism dude. So for me, it's like fat is like burning diesel, right? It burns slow, burns over a long time, and it's the body's natural way of using energy. So, I get way sharper on it. This thing called Keto Sharpness. Sometimes you get the keto flu. Your body just doesn't adjust very well. My body loves keto. I had tons of energy. Sometimes when I was kicking into ketosis, I'd only get like 5 hours of sleep a night because my body was just so full of natural energy from the fats and the ketones that I couldn't get to sleep. And my mind was clear, so I'm smashing out work, working from home. I've got the energy to educate myself. I'm reading a lot more. I'm reading about healing. It's a really healing process. So I'm reading things like Brené Brown. There's a guy called Young Pueblo. I really recommend his books. They're just amazing short stories and poems on the healing process and just the inner work and what you feel throughout that. A great book. He's got a great book called Inward, and then he's got another book called Clarity and Connection. Both amazing books. Highly recommend them. I'm working out every day. I'm setting this challenge so that I can disappear from the world while everyone's sitting in fear, unsure of what's happening next. I'm making the most of it. I'm taking advantage of it. Thankfully, I'm comfortable. I'm still working because I was in essential services. And I would just make sure I did the work. And I'd have to push past all of my insecurity. And, every day I would be thinking, oh, is this enough? But it worked. It was getting there. Getting good constant feedback. Watching the fat slowly melt away. Building confidence within myself. Starting to appreciate my body for the first time. I'll tell you something. I've never taken so many photos of myself in the last 2 years than I have in my entire life. Just taking these small little steps to appreciate myself aesthetically and to challenge that negative mindset that I had about my own body and about myself for so many years. And I still have a way to go with that. I'm still not that physically confident, but I certainly recognize a change. And speaking of perceptions, around this time, I started going to therapy as well in about March because I knew that I had to get my mind right as well. I knew it wasn't just about being fit. I knew that I had self-esteem problems. I knew that I had anxiety problems and I was dealing with this addiction. And I wanted to make sure that I was healing properly and I could reflect on how I could be a better person after my breakup, because I felt guilty. I felt terribly guilty about not being the person and not being my complete self to look after the people that I care about. I knew that I wasn't a good enough partner, that I didn't hold safety and emotional security for my partner. And that hurt me a lot. So I just wanted to just reflect and take some time for myself. So that's what I did. Started going to therapy. Found this amazing therapist. And therapy has been immense for me. It's been immense. I call it the gym of the mind. Because for me, it's the equivalent of sweating it out. Except instead of sweating it out physically, you're sweating it out emotionally. Just for the fact that I could speak to someone openly about my feelings and my fears and my traumas and these moments in my mind that play over and over again, and just divulge openly and honestly all this shit that I'm feeling within myself. And then having someone that wouldn't judge me for it, and I never felt judged in that process. There was just this loving kindness and understanding and empathy. And to be honest, that was nothing that I'd ever felt before. It was scary enough for me to actually talk about how I really felt because I just had barely opened up at that point. But by talking about it and just releasing these fears and these sadnesses and this pain that I just been holding within myself, some of it for years, it releases it. It releases it and you get clarity. Because that's one of the things that I've found the most interesting as a real observation is that fear and pain, they keep you from your heart. They keep you isolated. They keep you from your truest self. Fear has through the ego has a very good mechanism, a very clever mechanism about separating you from others as an attempt to protect you. And that was very useful for the ego, when we were hunting and gathering and you didn't know tribes and other people. But unfortunately, it's somehow just transferred itself into the way that we socialize with the people we love and care about too. So by speaking about these problems, they open you up and you get clarity and you create space within your own mind and in your heart and in your soul, because you aren't suffering as much. You aren't in survival mode as much. You're giving yourself space to thrive. Yeah, so that, plus the diet and exercise going well, it's a potent combination of healing in there. That's what I wanted to talk about, is the different bits and pieces that can help you really transform in your own way. And then outside of the therapy, I was developing other positive mental health practices that I'd never had before. Like I was beginning to meditate. I'm a big fan of Sam Harris's Waking Up app. I learned to meditate through him. And between him and my therapist, understood the concept of mindfulness, where, we are not our emotions. We are not all of our emotions. We are the beautiful, silent witness and observer of our emotions. And if we can sit in that state, in our metacommunicative state, you can observe emotions instead of being caught up in them all the time. And if you can recognize that within yourself and practice that often, that is powerful. And it's been one of the most transformative tools that I've had, is understanding mindfulness and understanding that you need to detach and observe your emotions instead of being caught up in them all the time. And that constant practice, that daily practice of observation, creates immense growth in minimizing reactivity and minimizing suffering, because you understand that the feelings you have are temporary. And then you can eventually choose how you feel and how you react to a situation. And that is immense, because things are going to happen to you, but you always have a choice of how you react to it. It doesn't seem like that all the time. It's difficult. It's not easy, but there is a way. And if you can practice that mindfulness and minimize the reactivity and minimize the judgment in your life, for me, that's been one of the biggest changes in the way I perceive the world and I perceive myself, is that not everything is out to get me. Not everything is there to hurt me. I've just been hurt so much that that's what happens by default, because I haven't opened up about my wounds and given them the space to heal. So everything that happens in my life to me feels extra personal, feels extra harsh, because the other person doesn't see it, but whatever they say might touch some really fresh wounds, and wounds that stay open because I don't acknowledge them. And I haven't healed them with my own understanding and self-love. So those three combined. Oh, and self-care. Let's talk about self-care a little bit. And self-love, acceptance. That's a big part too. Is that, I have a huge inner critic. And sometimes it works to my advantage, because it makes me think in ways and creates details that other people don't have. But for a lot of the time, it just takes me away from feeling joy about certain situations or just feeling comfortable within myself, because I'm constantly criticizing, constantly thinking I'm not enough. So learning how to self-care and giving myself some empathy and compassion about the way I feel, about acknowledging if I feel insecure and not just trying to repress it and try and just brush it off, or just the act of allowing myself to feel things and giving myself the space to enjoy my own company and do things for me. I really hadn't done a lot for me up until I'd been on my own, to be honest. I didn't really actually understand who I was and what I liked, what I didn't like, and how much space I actually needed on my own. So having this approach to self-care and self-love and enjoying my own time and space, which was abundant during lockdown, those things were the basis of the transformation for me. Mentally, physically, spiritually. The spiritual part comes in from intuition and also from meditation, a little bit of, I guess more esoteric research. Is that for me, my connection to spirituality starts with the gut and the intuition. Because to me, that's your highest self. That's your highest self that sits there inside you, just that little whisper. It can start as a whisper, just that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you know better. And we all have that. We have that with every self-destructive behavior that we take, whatever we do. We always have that whisper in our own minds. And we don't listen to it a lot. But for me, that is the seed of the higher self. And then by trusting that gut, trusting that intuition with decisions, you find yourself in more rewarding places. And then through this trusting of the gut and the intuition, anything that positive positive in my life that happened, that I followed my gut in, I get these surges of energy. It feels like honestly like a blessing, like a surge of energy from the gods that I'm on the right path. And I can't ignore it. And that's what's guiding me now and has guided me for the last 2 years, essentially. When I started finally listening to that thing, and it's just been rewarding. And then, so you have this feeling of your intuition in your gut. You follow that. And then through things like meditation and how did I get there, actually? It's a good question. So I went from the intuition, the higher self, and then by trusting in the higher self, you get rewarded. And everything that's happened in my life recently that's been positive has all been intuition based. And when you have that and you pick up that pattern, it's extremely hard to ignore. That it's hard to ignore the call of a higher power, the call of God, whatever form it may be. It doesn't matter. That you can't help but feel it. And honestly, I was raised Muslim and I wasn't raised religious and I'm not religious. But in the last 2 years, my connection to God, to a higher power, has never been stronger. And that connection is what guides the seemingly insane things that I do that are outlandish. Like trying to start a comedy business or just trying to start 2 things at once. And right now I'm sitting in a room where I've got on 2 whiteboards all these learnings that I've had throughout my spiritual journey that I'll talk about in later pods, and you'll see. So that's the realization of the spirit, the soul, whatever you want to call it. But so throughout this process, over the lockdown, we're probably talking in the first, I'm going to keep this pod to probably about the first 12 months of the transformation, because I think I've talked a fair bit about this shit now. But that combination, that alignment of mind and body and spirit, that alignment has created the transformation. Is that learning how to trust in yourself, learning how to trust in that higher power, in that feeling, that intuition, and then also learning to trust other people trust that they want to support you and get the best out of you through, for me, it was my therapist, and Nikita is my coach. It creates this extremely fertile environment to change in, particularly because, again, you've got no distractions. I think I watched, I don't know, the only thing I watched, I don't have any free-to-air TV plugged in for the last 2 years, since I moved out. All I've watched on Netflix is The Last Dance. That's how far back we're going. I haven't watched Tiger King. I haven't watched any TV. I watch a lot of podcasts and things that are about self-development, but I just focused on myself. I was reading shit every day, just working out, enjoying my space, playing music, smoked a bit, and just enjoyed being in my own little world for me. And it was great, man. I didn't worry about the lockdowns at all. I barely paid attention. Yeah, an hour every day. I don't give a shit. Go to Coles, do my trip. That's it. Talk to people on Zoom from time to time. Do my work. I was busy. 10 hours a day. I was working hard, making sales. I made plenty of sales during the lockdown because I was in demand. Oh, yeah. I was one of those fucking pricks that did well during lockdown. It is what it is. So those things combined, they start to really pay off. So I'm still losing this weight. My perception is changing. My awareness is expanding. My consciousness is expanding. I'm starting to realize all of these limiting beliefs that I had within myself, actually confronting my pain, my low self-esteem, why I'm anxious, the wounds that I've got that aren't necessarily my fault, that have been imprinted on me from a poor family life or, inadequate emotional background. You become a lot less, not self-involved, but you become a lot less defensive. You go from surviving to thriving when you make peace with all of these things within yourself. Because you weren't so concerned about feeling sorry for yourself that you've been hurt and blaming other people for the way you feel. Because the reality is you're just rejecting a part of yourself in others when you push them away, you judge them. So a lot of this process, yes, it's about bettering myself, but it's actually about confronting myself and having a lot and, facing a lot of hard truths. And some of those things you just need to openly, verbally admit to yourself, to put it out into the ether, put it out into the universe, so you aren't just masking it in your own little world where your thoughts are and, the last bastion of privacy we have inside our own minds. So one of the things I've always said is the outside world means nothing to your inner growth. And I've got plenty of examples to prove that. That's what this process was. The outside world was gone. I didn't need it. I didn't need it to be a better person. It was all contained within my four walls. So the work happens over, 3 to 4 months. I'm losing weight steadily. I'm figuring my shit out. And then the karmic payoff starts to really build. So between March and June, I lost 11.5 kilos. I went from 25-ish% body fat to sub 10. I didn't have an exact amount, but I was fucking lean. I think leaner than I think I was leaner the first time than I was the second time. I had tendons in my abs. I could see the veins in my lower abs. And man, I was cut. Man, I got heaps of photos. I went from a kid that, was losing his dick as he got fatter to being a guy that was fucking shredded. At Instagram models percentage of body fat. Insane. And on a day that I finished my cut, I actually got recognized at work as I got a leadership award by the managing director of my business, part of the business. So I was recognized in the top 1% of cultural leaders within Telstra Enterprise, which is a business of 7,000 people. And I'm in the top 1% of their leaders. And I was the least, in this little group that we had, this little cultural champion group, I was the most junior person in that team. In my team, there were people that were running, the accounts of the big four banks and had the defense contract. But in our group, they chose me as the team leader to help with this program that they were doing. And they gave me an award for the way I led that team. And that meant a lot to me, and it still does. It really, being surrounded by other people that were passionate about people and culture and growth. I hadn't had that in the business I was, because it was all just corporate bullshit. But when you actually find good people that are genuinely people persons who want to lift you up and support you, that was something that I really needed at that time in my life. Is to see that I was a hard worker. I was a real hard worker. I was fucking great at what I did. And I knew it. But I wasn't recognized because the politics was just all about, it was just kissing ass. It was a very toxic culture. So to be recognized by people who actually cared about other people and to recognize me as a leader, that was really special to me. It still is. It's given me the fuel to believe that I can be a leader in my own world. So I got that award the same day that I'd finished my cut. And I was so fucking proud of myself to getting to that point. Just to be able to, the fact that I fucking did it. I proved it to myself that I could fucking do it and do it well. I didn't just, knock a couple of kegs off. I got fucking lean. I got to an enviable physique. This is coming from a kid that at 9 years old or 10 years old was crying in the floor of a big W because I couldn't fit into size 14 clothes because I was so fat. And I felt so uncomfortable in my own body and so ashamed of myself. This is coming from a kid, who could not run 400 meters or rolled their ankle at the cross country after like 4 minutes in or got the worst score at the beat test constantly. And I got to this point where I finally fucking did it. I wasn't full of shit. I could do it. And then I get this award on top of that. I remember just squatting on the ground, just like in disbelief. Just like, what the fuck is happening? How can so many good things be happening in this one day? It was insane. And then within that week, I got a promotion. I got a promotion to the job that I had wanted from basically when I entered Telstra, and got a massive pay raise. And I just could not believe so many good things could happen to me at once. And it felt amazing, but I felt like an imposter. I just couldn't believe this is all happening. And that's, from about June onwards for a little while there. Just so many great things happened, even in the depths of those lockdowns. I wrote a list of how many insane things had happened. Where is it? So I wrote down from June to November 2020 was this insane period of change and abundance for me. So let me go through this list. Actually, so this is a list from when November 8, 2019, which is the day that I broke up with my ex, to November 2020. And I just had to write this down because I could not believe how many good things had happened just by working on myself and how much I had changed in this process. So, since November, I'd won a comedy award, performed comedy at a festival. I'd started going to therapy and worked out old traumas, got my own space, made my own home, worked on my body, ate extremely well, learnt discipline, became comfortable in my own skin, rebuilt my self-esteem, learned how to meditate, learned about mindfulness, learned how to be vulnerable, learned how to identify shame and how that affects us, reconnected with my inner child, increased my self-awareness, changed my inner monologue, greatly reduced my inner critic, practiced gratitude, reconnected with my family and my friends, embraced solitude, got a promotion, became financially secure, invested in my future, owed no one any of my time, rekindled my passion for music, learned to express myself, appreciated the fact that I'm a different and unique individual, make peace with the fact that I feel like an outsider, actively seeking growth, trusting my gut more, being recognized as a leader. I got the upgrade of my dream car. So when I got my promotion, I wanted to get an Audi A3 because my Falcon was dying off. And I got a lease because I was like, it was a good tax deduction. They didn't have an A3, but they had an S3, which is the model up. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm getting that. And so I overachieved on the car that I wanted. We sold out Jambo, sold out my own comedy show. I became a mentor to other people. I opened up about my own sexuality and desire. I learned how to take more creative risks, recreated my identity, created a creative outlet. I overachieved on my sales number with no meetings, became a sales leader within my own organization. I became one of Nikita's Hall of Famers. I didn't think that was going to be a fucking thing. This guy's transformed bodybuilders into champions. Transformed champions, bodybuilders, and I'm part of his Hall of Fame for the work that I did during lockdown. And I found self-alignment, focus, and the path. And that's all within 12 months-ish. And probably a good 9 months of really doing the work, really doing the inner work, sorting my shit out, facing myself, getting my integrity back to me and my family. That's an important one. As a man, you need your integrity. You know, there's a saying, a man's as good as his word. And that I 100% align with. You keep your word to people and you keep your word to yourself and you get places. You fucking get places. It's insane. It was insane how much my life had changed. But I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm done, right? You're never done. You're a constant work in progress. You're constantly evolving. You're constantly changing. There's always more work you can do. And one of the things you need to do in this process is love yourself through the process and appreciate the small wins along the way as breadcrumbs towards a greater you. Because I used to be really guilty, and that's why I used to cheat, is I would just, try and blitz my way through cheating and think, on the premise that I'd be happier on the other side of it. But that's a false premise. Because there is no better you on the other side of everything. Yes, there might be this sense of satisfaction, but if you're trying to delay happiness and acceptance of yourself until you get to a certain point, you're doing it wrong. There is only progress now. There is only happiness now. And that's a lesson I have to learn time and time again. And that's what I mean. These aren't one and done things. You're never done. You just evolve and things get harder and you go deeper within yourself. And that's where I'm at right now. But you get better. You get stronger. You trust yourself more. You understand how the ego gets in your way. One of the interesting ways that the ego gets in your way is that it throws your fears at you as a means to protect itself. And that's happened to me a lot. All the what ifs, all the distractions, all of the, this is never going to work. That is what your ego does to protect itself, in air quotes, and protect you from what it perceives to be danger. But your higher self, the intuition, the gut, the more calm sense of self, if you can listen to that reassuring voice, that thing that calls you forward, even in the face of whatever risks you perceive to be on the other side, if you focus on that, that's growth. That's something that'll lead you to somewhere better. Because fear is an illusion. It can feel really thick and impenetrable at times when it's got you. But when you pass through it, you realize it's just vapor. It's just that fake suffering in your own mind. Look at that. 4:44 on the dot. I checked my phone. That's another thing. Part of the spirituality practice is just all the little, noticing all the little synchronicities that occur in your life. That's why, another reason why I'm a big believer in the spirit and a higher power, is that these little crumbs from God, like, seeing 444 somewhere or 111, 222, those magic numbers, I see them so often, almost, I would say on a good day, multiple times a day. And all the little synchronicities in the thing, the little opportunities that pop up when you need them, or that you've been thinking about. And, you could talk about like cognitive bias and things like that if you want to ruin the fun, but just too much of it happens for it to be a coincidence. I mean, if I wasn't so sure about it, I wouldn't be fucking talking about it, that's for sure. And you don't need to define the higher power. Actually, that's probably another thing we need to talk about is gratitude. One of the ways that I've shifted my mindset, which has been the big thing here, it hasn't really been about the body. It's really more about the mind and the perceptions of the mind. So in the body, mind, and spirit, you have to look after your body through good diet and exercise. That also helps the mind. Body, mind, and spirit are interconnected. They're not separate entities, but they do have separate aspects that they need to be addressed. So with the body, for me, exercise and diet. All right? Those both also impact the mind because the mind is part of the brain is part of the body. So the major practice for me to transform my mind has been meditation, therapy, self-care, self-acceptance, and then the connection between the mind and the spirit for me has been modulated by the practice of gratitude. Because when you practice gratitude, it's not just about writing lists of things that you like. It is about programming. It's about connecting in the heart deeply and really feeling that feeling of gratitude in your heart and letting it fill you up. Really thinking about sometimes where you felt really grateful or someone has provided to you, and really feeling that, and then expressing that emotion within you through your gratitude, the way you talk about it. For example, I practice gratitude daily, and what I do is I journal in the morning. I write 3 things I'm grateful for as part of that journaling, and I take a second. I basically pray. I pray. And I try and channel that feeling of goodwill inside my heart and feel it. And then I express gratitude to the higher power. And, be thankful for the abundance and the opportunity and the chance to create great things and connect with great people. Because when you do that, when you program your mind to be grateful and you align your heart and your mind, it changes your perception. It changes your perception to go from surviving to thriving. You see the opportunities. You think about what could come in that's positive into your life instead of being skeptical about the outside world. And that's been a significant part as well, is a firm gratitude practice. Because it's not just about feeling it, what it does, and this is what I've noticed in myself, is that you're reprogramming your brain. That's what all these practices do. You're reprogramming your mind through journaling, meditation, exercise, gratitude. There is the woo-woo aspect of it, but there is actual practical application of neuroplasticity and reprogramming how your brain and mind works. And that's something that I'm going to cover over multiple podcasts in the near future, because I think it's important to share these tools with other people. And that's probably, let's talk about why I'm doing this, right? It's because throughout this process, I've completely changed the way that I perceive the world in ways that I can't even explain yet, but I hope to explore in this podcast. And I've gone from someone that has been highly cynical, hidden away, negative, just everything that you've heard about, into someone that feels powerful, that feels strong, that feels capable, that isn't concerned about the challenges of what the world is going to bring next. That's why I'm starting businesses, so I can capitalize on the opportunities that I see, because the way that my mind has completely shifted. And it's not just about doing this for me. Because if it's just about me, I wouldn't try to be talking about this. Because one of the greatest things that I've realized throughout this process is being of service. Being of service is really important to me. It's very, very gratifying. And what I mean by being of service is to help other people. For me, I really enjoy it. It's why I'm great as an account manager when I do my job and my day job. It's why I can be a good mentor to people. It's why I can be a good supporter of people. It's why I love running a comedy room, because these are all services. Leadership is a service. Leadership is a service you offer to others. The purpose of a leader is to serve their team, to get the most out of them over and over again. That's it. So when you're of service, you get satisfaction from the benefit of the others. It's not about just doing it for you. And I'm talking about this because I feel fucking amazing. I feel completely different. And my life is in a completely different path than what I even imagined before I made the decision almost 2 years ago. I wouldn't be sitting here thinking about I wouldn't have dreamed that I'd be living in a fucking house by myself, having a nice car, creating 2 businesses, one of them that's probably never been done before in the world that I know of. But this only came from doing the work, and it's completely changed me. And when you get to this point, you don't want to keep it to yourself. You want to share it with others. Because when you thrive, you don't think about yourself. You live in abundance. You live in opportunity. And by giving this out to other people, I get to help them. I get to be of service to others by passing this on, by passing on these tools and these insights, because we've all got our own individual journey. Everyone's in different parts of their journey, and different people need to hear different things at different times. It's completely unique. But I found a lot of value from learning from others. We stand on the shoulders of giants. What does that mean? Everything that we've learned within ourselves is a culmination of the experience, the insight of others that have been fed to us. And if I can share with you my story, my pain, my tools, and my insights to help you become a better person, then I've done my job. Then I feel great, because I get to be of service to you and to anyone that listens to this, and of anyone that's willing to listen. That's why I love mentoring. That's why I love teaching, is because I love to share for the benefit of others. And why I love to do that is because I know what it's like to feel alone and isolated and insecure and hurt. And it sucks. And we all feel it constantly. But we never talk about it. Or we do, or it permeates in different ways. But we've all suffered the same in some way or form. And part of my mission now is to be of service. And that service is to minimize suffering. If I can help you suffer less through my experience, then I've done what I believe I've been put here to do. So, I hope it helps. We've just gotten started. I've got plenty more to share. And yeah, this will be funny at some point, I'm sure. But for now, I felt like I needed to share this because, a little self-indulgently, this is part of my evolution too. I've been thinking about doing this podcast and talking about my story for months, but I couldn't sum up the courage because I was afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of expressing myself earnestly and honestly to the public, to the largest stage that there is. Even that I don't think many people will listen to this initially, but who knows over time. So hopefully I get to help you. And by listening to this, you've actually gotten to help me. So thank you. Got pretty deep there, didn't it? But that's what I'm trying to exemplify. Radical honesty, understanding, and connection through empathy. We are all one and the same, and we need to start treating each other like that, and someone's got to take a step forward. Yeah, I'm trying to live a life of impact now, about trying to leave a legacy of positivity to try and minimize suffering as much as I can. That's what I love about comedy. So when it's done right, everyone forgets their problems. Everyone forgets how hurt they have been or how much they're suffering in that moment. And that's a powerful thing. And I don't think we appreciate that enough as comedians. Just how healing we can be when done right. Hey, that's a conversation for a different day. I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. It's been a real gut-wrencher for me to be so open and honest about the inner workings of my life. Some of the things I've said here I've never said before. A lot of it, actually. But I think, I hope that you get a better understanding of who I am, where I'm coming from, and where I think we should go. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the tools and the insights that I've learned a little bit more during the pod. If you've got any questions, if you ever feel like you need to speak to someone, if you need help, always reach out. Reach out to me if you have a conversation, if you want to just vent or you want to understand more about what I've done or where I can help you, please reach out. I am here to be of service. Where can you find me? Well, you can find me on Instagram at jrehman. Also, come down and check out a show. I run something called Footscray Comedy Club, where I run comedy shows with a good friend of mine, Sam, in the inner west of Melbourne. And they are fun, guys. They're a real experience. I'm really proud of the work that we've put in and the effort we've put in to spread joy and bring laughter back to the community. So come, please check it out. Come see a show. They're going to get bigger and better. It's really exciting. It's a good time to be back and to be at the forefront of the comedy scene. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying impacting people's lives that way. Besides that, if you find this is helpful, like and subscribe, 5 stars. I haven't really figured all that stuff out, but you know what the drill is for that sort of shit. Please spread the word about this podcast to someone you know if it helps. If you think that it's insightful, please. I am more than happy to have this spread around, answer any questions, and hopefully I've educated, entertained, inspired, motivated you. And thank you for being a part of this. I'll be releasing podcasts every Tuesday. Look for @the Binge Thinker. Subscribe to that. And thank you for being a part of the inaugural podcast. We went deep. We went real deep and real heavy. But this is just what I wanted. This is just what I wanted to be said. And this is what I wanted to have put out there to set the scene for a transformed me. And hopefully I can help some of you transform too. All right. I've been Jameel Rehman. Have a good one. Take care.